For various reasons, the two countries started coming closer together. In 2003, we had Ariel Sharon visit India, something that would have been unthinkable in an earlier era. And so there has been an upswing. That said, I would still say that there has been there's a qualitative difference between 92 and to 2014, which is a positive relationship, and what we've seen in the last almost 4 years with the rise of Narendra Modi. And the most important thing is that, in a sense, Indian Zionists, the term used to be an oxymoron, luckily it isn't anymore, Indian Zionists have won a 100-year-old argument. So you go from Nehru rejecting the Balfour Declaration in 1917. 100 years later, a popularly elected Prime Minister of India visits the grave of Theodore Herzl publicly with the Prime Minister of Israel. And I think the symbolism of that, that journey shows that in Indian politics, the old certainties about what was moral and what was not has essentially been turned upside down. There was no great backlash. I mean, there was some sort of sniping by the usual suspects. But Modi is first and foremost a popular politician, and he understood that he was, in that messaging, he was signaling something that went beyond just the India-Israel relationship. He was signaling something to the world about his vision of foreign policy, and the fact that many of his own supporters had long chafed at the idea that India was not able to establish a proper relationship with Israel. And I think this is something also that tends to get a little bit overlooked, so I'm going to speak about it a bit. The domestic roots of this, right? So we have the international, we have geopolitics changing in the world, the USSR collapsing, the United States emerging as the world's sole superpower, and all of that certainly contributed to India's thaw with Israel. And the fact that that Israel had already kind of behind the scenes begun to develop a relationship with India's intelligence agencies and defense establishment and so on. So that had already begun. But I think that the other thing that changed quite dramatically has been the mood in domestic politics. And over time, what developed a sense, particularly in the BJP, but not only in the BJP, that the old Indian policy towards Israel, the old Indian standoffishness towards Israel, was not in fact rooted in any kind of high principle. It was in fact rooted in cowardice and fear. And it was fear of the Arab oil boycott, and it was political fear of alienating a significant Muslim minority in a first-past-the-post electoral system, where often you can be elected with 30% or 35% of the vote in a constituency. Now, I think, in fact, this is, in a way, quite unfair to India's Muslims. The notion that they would sort of reflexively be associated with voting primarily on a foreign policy issue, or that they would put their own attachment to the Palestinian cause ahead of India's national interest in developing a very close intelligence and defense, agriculture and technology relationship with Israel. But it is true that there was an element of reality there. Politicians are not, they may be cautious, but they're not stupid. And so there was an element of that. And the backlash, which we see in other ways and sort of with the rise of the BJP, has ended up creating something quite unique, which is an extremely strong pro-Israel constituency in Indian politics.